Hello everyone, my name's Adam, and in this video we're going to introduce the ideas of lists and the random library in Python. And to do that, we're going to solve a fun little puzzle. Now I'll talk about how lists and the random library would be useful and how they come up in solving a puzzle like the one you're about to see, but I'll also be sure to make some other videos where we take a closer look at working with lists in Python as well as the random library. So let's get started by taking a look at the problem we're going to solve. And it's a puzzle that looks like this. As you can see, it kind of looks like a crossword puzzle, but instead of letters and words, we have numbers and operations. And what we're supposed to do here is use the digits 1 through 9 only one time each. We're supposed to place those digits in these empty white boxes, these open spaces here, such that the 6 equations we have here are satisfied. That is, the 3 equations that are horizontal, this one, and this one, as well as the 3 vertical equations, this one, and this one. So that's our goal, using only the digits 1 through 9 and using them only one time each. Now, I first saw this problem in the newsletter for my daughter's elementary school. And when the two of us sat down to start solving it, we quickly realized that we could be here for quite a while trying to get the right numbers in the right positions here. And we began talking about how we could use a computer to really kind of speed things up. And that's what we actually ended up doing. And I thought that this would be a great way, kind of a fun way to introduce lists and the random library in Python. Now you might say, well, wait a minute, if we just write a program to solve this little puzzle here, doesn't that kind of take the fun out of it? And I would say no. I mean, for me, the coding itself is a lot of fun. And when you actually write that program and see it give you the correct results, it's a great experience. It's very enjoyable and a lot of fun. So that's what we're going to do here. So how are we going to do this? How are we going to write a program to help us solve this problem, help us come up with a solution to this puzzle? Well, the first thing that we're going to do is take all of our open boxes here, these empty spaces, and assign a variable or a letter. So we'll call this one A, and I'll just go across. So this will be B, C, and then we'll go across here, D, E, F, and G, H, and I. So the goal is to find these find values for these 9 variables, the correct values that end up satisfying all 6 of the equations that we have here. And we're, once again, only going to use the digits 1 through 9. And that's one of the first things we're going to do when we write our program. We're going to talk about the values we can use. We're going to create a list of the possible values for these variables. And of course, those are the digits 1 through 9, like that. And to begin, we'll assign these values to our variables A through I. And we'll start with the most, maybe the most basic assignment, which would be to say that A is 1, B is 2, C is 3, D is 4, and so on, all the way up to I, which is 9. So you can imagine that here, we'll start with an A value of 1, a B value of 2, a C value of 3, and so on. And we'll ask our program in Python to check, does that assignment of values end up satisfying our 6 equations? And you can see here quickly that that will not be the case. It will not work with these values, in which case we'll ask Python to do something else, and that is to shuffle up these assigned values here. So perhaps something like this. So now A is 5, B is 7, and C is 6, and so on. If we have that assignment, if those numbers are placed in these positions here, would that satisfy all 6 equations? And if it does, great, we'll stop there. We found the right positions. If not, we'll shuffle up those assignments again and keep testing. Now you might think, is this going to take a long time for the for Python to solve by just randomly shuffling up the values and testing it out over and over again until we come across the right solution? And the answer is actually no. It's very quick, as you'll see. And that's the approach we're going to take. Okay, so let's maybe quickly talk about some pseudocode here, just so we have an idea of where we're going once we do get into Python. As we mentioned before, the first thing that we're going to do is assign some initial values. We'll define our variables A through I, and we'll give them some initial values, A being 1, B being 2, C being 3, and so on. And after that, we're going to start a loop. And we're going to repeat that loop until all 6 equations are satisfied. And what is it that we were going to do in each cycle of the loop? Well, we're just going to shuffle up the assigned values. So we started with A is 1, B is 2, C is 3, and so on. If that doesn't end up satisfying the 6 equations, which we know it won't, we'll shuffle up those values and see if that shuffling does end up satisfying the 6 equations. If it does, great, we'll stop there. If not, we'll just keep shuffling and testing until we come up with the correct solution, the correct positions, at which point we'll stop and we'll print those assigned values that do give us the results we're looking for. So that's what we'll do. So let's open up our online Python compiler. This is program is. I've used it in the past. There are a lot of online editors out there for Python. This is a great one. You can use whichever one you like. It will essentially work the same in the end. So let's get going. Now, the first thing that we have to be aware of here is that we need to import a library. Notice in this step here in our pseudocode, we are shuffling the assigned values. In order to do that, to come up with a random shuffling of these values, we need to use a library called the random library. So I'm going to start by importing the random library. Now, you've seen this idea in the past. We've imported the math library for using pi and square root function and so on. This random library is going to allow us to shuffle the values in a list of values. So I've imported that. Now, the next thing we said we were going to do, or the first thing we said we were going to do, is assign some initial values. So we know the values that we're supposed to use here are the digits 1 through 9. And I'm going to put those values in a list in Python. Okay, so the list is just another data type, kind of like an integer or a floating point number or a string. But when we enter a list, we have to do it a specific way. So I'm going to call my list of values, I'm just going to call it values. And when we want to define this list, we have to use square brackets. So I'm going to hit my square brackets there. And when we enter our values into this list, we need to separate them using a comma. So my list of possible values that can be used here are 1, and then I'm going to go comma 2, comma 3, all the way up to 9. So that's my list of possible values. And then we said before that we were going to assign these values to our variables here. And we were going to do that first by just using the basic kind of mapping that A is 1, B is 2, C is 3, and so on. So let's do that. So I could just say A equals 1, but I'm going to do this a different way for a couple reasons. One, so I can show you how you can kind of refer to elements in this list. And the other reason I'm going to do this is because later we're going to use this idea when we go to shuffle the values in this list. So what I'm going to try to do here is say A is going to be the first value of this list. And it's really actually quite simple to do this in Python. We do it by saying A is going to be, well, first of all, we need to state the name of our list, which is values. And then in square brackets, we need to put the position in our list that we want to refer to. We call this the index. Now, something we have to be aware of is this. In Python, the first element of a list does not have a position of 1. It does not have an index of 1. Its position number is 0. So that's why I'm going to put 0 here. So keep that in mind. The first element in a list has an index or a position of 0, not 1. So what we're saying here is A is the values list at an index of 0, which is the first element. So you can probably imagine that B will be the values list at an index of, well, 1. Which would refer to the second position. C is going to be the values list with at 2, an index of 2, which is actually the third position. So we're going to keep doing this all the way up to I. So here we go. Okay, so there we go. We have our variables with their initial values, and you can see we've gone all the way up to I, which is the values list, the value at the index of 8, which is actually the 9th position. So the next thing that we need to do is start our loop. And we said that we're going to repeat this loop until all equations are satisfied. That is, until all 6 of these equations are satisfied. Now, how can we state that in the loop? Well, first of all, we're going to use a while loop. And we're pretty much going to say as long as these 6 equations are not all satisfied, keep running that loop. So we pretty much want to say, as long as we do not have this, and this being satisfied, run the loop again. So how do we do that? Well, we'll say while not whatever I put in this set of brackets here. In other words, as long as whatever is in these brackets is not satisfied, keep running the loop. And you can just write the word not there. So what's one of those conditions? Well, a minus b plus c equals 6. Now, first of all, notice I used a double equal sign here because I'm using a comparison operator. I'm checking if a minus b plus c is equal to 6. So whenever we do that, we need to use a double equal sign. If we're just assigning values like we did here, it's a single equal sign. But if we're making that comparison and kind of checking that that's true, we need to use that double equal sign. It's the comparison operator for equality. So while we don't have that, we want to keep running the loop. But we have a bunch of other conditions that we want to include as well. And we can just say and. You can literally write and. D plus E minus F equals 14. So if that's not happening as well, we want to keep running this loop. So minus F equals 14. So we're going to put all of our little equations in here and say, as long as these aren't all happening, keep running that loop. So I'll just take a minute now and I will put all 6 equations in here separated by the AND operator. So here we go. Okay, there we go. We have all of our conditions set here in the loop, and we're saying as long as we do not have all of these things happening, keep running that loop. So I'll put my colon here for my loop. And what is it that we want to do in each cycle of the loop again? Well, we said we wanted to shuffle those assigned values. So this is where the random library comes in handy. We are going to say if these are not all happening, shuffle the values of this list. That is, just kind of reposition those values, and then we're going to reassign them and try it again. So to do that, we need to, first of all, say that we want to access the random library. So we type random and then a period, and we want to access the shuffle function. So we're going to type shuffle. And what is it that we want to shuffle? The values in our list. Now the name of our list is actually values, so we'll just put that. So what this function here is going to do is going to take our list and it's going to shuffle or reposition randomly these values. And once we've done that, we now need to reassign those values to A, B, C, and so on all the way through I. Okay, so what we can do is we can actually just take this here and say, all right, we've got a new list now. It's our old list after it's been shuffled. Now we want to redefine A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, and I according to those new values. So I'll have to do, I just copied and pasted there. So Control C, Control V, and I'm going to indent here because these are all part of the loop. All right, so we've shuffled our values. We've reassigned those values to A through I, and we're going to run the loop again and check, do those values end up satisfying our 6 equations? If they do, great. If not, run the loop again. Now, once we do come up with those values, the correct ones to satisfy all 6 equations, our loop will stop, and then we'd like to probably see what those values are. So we'll just print the most recent shuffling of our list, and that will tell us what A, B, C, and so on have to be. So we'll just print our list, which is called values, and that's going to print the list. So there we go. We have our program. We are ready to go. We've imported the random library. We've defined the values that we are interested in using and assigned them to our variables. We've set up a loop. So as long as we don't have all 6 equations being satisfied, we are going to keep running that loop. And we do that by shuffling the list, reassigning the values for A through I. And finally, once we do have all of these equations being satisfied, the loop stops and it will print our final result. So let's hit run and see what happens. Hopefully, whoa, that was very quick. I was going to say, hopefully it won't take too long. We've already got our answer. So apparently, if we use an A value of 8, 5, b value of 5, c value of 3, and so on all the way up to an I value of 2, we should get the result we want for our puzzle. And let's take a look. If we actually go and use those values, do we have the correct answer here? We do. You can check it for yourself. 8 minus 5 plus 3 is indeed 6. They all work. 5 plus 9 minus 4 is 10. So that was very efficient. So not a crazy complicated program either. Pretty simple to write, and it worked very fast. There's, I'm not claiming this is the most elegant way to code this particular program, but it seemed to work well for us. So be sure to check out the other videos where I talk about more details of working with lists and the random library. There you go. Take care.